President Nana Akufo-Addo addresses G20 Africa Partnership Summit in Berlin.
Zongo communities to be assessed before monies are disbursed from Development Fund.
Energy Minister. Good evening, it's News Hour live on GBC24 and Ghana Television. My name is Micheline Taka.
And my name is Akpene Avo Ajaja. Robert Frimpomans is also here. He's our signer for today. In the details, the President Nana Akufo-Addo is urging African leaders to formulate an airtight plan to mobilize the continent's vast resources to solve its own problems.
Speaking at the G20 Africa Partnership Summit in Berlin, Germany, Nana Akufo-Addo said Africa can, in the shortest time, experience economic gains if the youth are allowed to realize their full potentials.
The G20 Africa Partnership Summit saw leaders from across Africa, the group of 20 leading economies, and anti-poverty activists assembled in Berlin with one task at hand, that is, to plan how to invest in the biggest human phenomenon on the planet today, Africa's population boom. Statistics indicate that Africa's population has just doubled in size since 1985 and will double again by 2050 to 2.5 billion. By then, the young population of Africa will be 10 times the size of the EU's youth population and equal to that of G20 countries. The Berlin summit is focused on how to invest in the youth for effective African development. Already, some African countries, including Ghana, have started receiving compacts to invest in the private sector and improve infrastructure. President Akufo-Addo called for value addition to raw materials produced on the African continent to improve the economy.
We must firstly facilitate the building of a new sustainable African civilization where there is accountable governance, where there is respect for the rule of law, individual liberties and human rights, where the principles of democratic accountability are guaranteed, and where we mobilize the immeasurable vast resources of Africa to resolve Africa's problems of poverty and development, and free ourselves from a mindset of aid, dependency, charity, and handouts. Secondly, we must initiate and implement policies that will encourage and empower the private sector to grow our respective economies within frameworks of macroeconomic stability. When the private sector flourishes and when our enterprises become competitive, not just on the continent, but also in the global marketplace, then can we create the thousands and thousands of jobs our teeming masses of unemployed youth crave.
He encouraged Africa to take her destiny into her own hands by facilitating the building of a new civilization. The president called for outstanding support for the African youth to realize their potential.
Young people, busy with their lives and earning a living, would hardly be tools for wreaking havoc on society. Understandably, the youth are willing to risk everything to earn a decent living. We have seen and continue to see in recent times the high numbers of young people taking harrowing risks around the Mediterranean, trying to reach a better life. What this means is that if we provide them the right environment in Africa, which enables them to enhance their skills, receive appropriate vocational training, and have access to digital technology, they will make our continent great. If these youth are allowed to realize their full potential, Africa could see huge economic gains in the shortest possible time.
President Akufo-Addo thanked German Chancellor Angela Merkel for putting Africa's development at the heart of Germany's presidency of the G20, which has resulted in the convening of the conference of the G20 Africa Partnership Summit. Members of the group later held a closed-door meeting with their host, German Chancellor Angela Merkel.
And back in the country, the Vice President, Alhaji Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, has announced that under the auspices of the Zongo Development Fund, assessment teams will soon visit Zongo communities to ascertain their needs before resources could be deployed. The Vice President was speaking at prayers at the Sunyain Central Mosque in the Bunahafo region.
The Vice President's visit to the Sunyani Central Mosque formed part of a nationwide tour. The tour is serving a dual purpose. It is to say thank you to Muslims for their conduct in the last elections, which the MPP won, and to reassure the Muslim community and Ghanaians in general that the MPP government does not take the promises it made during the last electioneering campaign lightly. He was accompanied to the mosque by the Bono Ahafo Regional Minister and other officials. Speaking to the faithful after the prayers, Vice President Alhaji Bawumia said a key reason for his visit was to say thank you to Muslims for heeding the call by the MPP. The Vice President further said the President is determined to fulfill all promises made during the last elections. He said the Zongo Development Fund, for instance, was captured and allocated substantial resources to make an impact on the Zongos. A representative of the Bono Ahafo Regional's Chief Imam seized the opportunity to make some appeals to the government. High on the list was the request for government to absorb and see the upgrading of some schools built and furnished by the Muslim community in the region. The Vice President arrived in Kintampo before visiting Sunyani. The current leg of his tour saw him praying and interacting with Muslims in the Upper East and the Northern regions. He has already toured Western, Central and Ashanti regions.
A retired nurse at Ketekrachi is appealing to the authorities to come to her aid to help save over 15-acre maize farm from armyworm invasion. She said she had already sprayed her farm twice on her own, but the pest continued to spread on the farm.
This is the maize farm of Madame Agnes Ahiribi, a retired nurse at Ketekrachi, who was once adjudged a district best farmer. She said she detected the presence of the armyworm around the second week of planting. She then reported the case to the District Agricultural Extension Services Department, which recommended an agrochemical to be sprayed on the farm, and she did so twice. Observing the pest closer, she detected that the armyworms found on her farm operate nocturnally, hence controlling them is becoming a tall order.
Inside where the tassel will come from, the worms are there and they continually chop. You can see from here, they continually chop and chew the whole stalk. So there will be no fruit.
However, a source at the Ketekrachi District Agricultural Office said the district is yet to start the actual maize cropping season, hence the armyworm control task force had just been formed. That is why they could not put a lid on the pest on time. When GBC24 visited the farm, the team had the actual proof of how the pest operates on the farm. They chew the stalk where the maize crop could tassel. Therefore, although there are green maize crops like these ones, most could not bear corn because the armyworms had already destroyed where the plant could tassel to produce the corn.
To secure workers' safety, the Human Resource Manager of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, Mr. John Korasari, has called on authorities to build speed ramps and zebra crossing on the road in front of GBC. With the surface of the road smoothened with asphalt, motorists have begun speeding on the Ring Road Central, which is notorious for pedestrian knockdowns. This came up when the new Nima Divisional Police Commander paid a courtesy call on management of GBC.
The road in front of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation has become a death trap to pedestrians. Currently, the road has no zebra crossing and speed ramps, so drivers step up the accelerator even as pedestrians want to cross the road. Some workers of GBC have lost their lives as a result of this nuisance. To curb the situation, the Human Resource Manager of GBC, Mr. John Kwasari, used the visit of the Commander of the Nima Police to launch an appeal for a solution to be found to the problem.
The main crossing, GBC to the other side of the road, we have registered so many accidents. Some of our staff have been killed. There used to be speed ramps there that helps to slow down the speed, but with the resurfacing of the road, it's gone. is going, and it's a major concern to us. So if you are able to do something about that, we'll be extremely grateful.
He also spoke about criminals who hide in the trees around GBC to harm workers.
And one of the main issues of security that our staff encounter has to do with, let's say, muggings at the junction. I mean, they close late and then they are going home, and then you have some miscreants at the junction who may, at a knife point, would like to take away their bags or phones and that kind of thing. So we have few cases like that.
The divisional commander of the Nima Divisional Police, DSP Paul Mensah Bampo, gave the assurance that he will help restore security in both GBC and its environs. He also raised some concerns about communication.
One challenge that we are facing is especially with communication. Ideally, these motorbikes and our patrol vehicles should have telephones. We have their own set, but when somebody has a problem, he has to call the radio room, our information room, before they call us, and then we relay to the patrol team. We are looking at a situation where within the communities, people will have our direct telephone numbers so that they can access us directly without having to route their calls through the headquarters. So we are appealing to corporate institutions, those mobile phone operators, if somebody can provide us with mobile phone, not for calls, for receiving calls, so that we have a plan of having our contact numbers made available on flyers, in the community, so people within the community know whom they can call when they are under attack or they are in emergency situations.
GBC indicated its preparedness to partner the police in propagating police news through its various news outlets to raise public sense of awareness about security.
Residents of Kanewu in the Tema West constituency have expressed displeasure at the neglect of roads in the area. The roads, which have been in a deplorable state for years, are poorer with the onset of the torrential rains.
The roads at Tema Kanewu have been left to wear over the years. Yesterday's downpour flooded some parts of the road at Kanewu. This has made it difficult for motorists to ply the road. Some residents and road users vented their displeasure about the situation.
This road has been there for long, and no one is trying to help. Even the government, they've been here several times saying they are going to do something about it, and yet they remain so for years now.
Some gutters are also choked with solid waste. As a result, running waters are pushed to surface whenever it rained. This aggravates flooding situations. The running footage is the aftermath of a rainfall and scenes after the floods have receded, a major source of concern for residents. This is a very normal scene in most communities in Ghana, where people indiscriminately throw garbage about.
34 women have been rescued from 4 human traffickers at a border checkpoint at Apla in the Volta region. The rescued victims, whose age ranged between 19 and 38, were being transported to Saudi Arabia through Nigeria.
These women were being trafficked to Saudi Arabia by 4 traffickers who are involved in the act. They had been promised better jobs abroad to enable them support their families. A 38-year-old victim told GBC24 that she had no idea where the human traffickers were sending them to. According to her, all she wanted in life was to secure a job abroad to cater for her children.
We say to Fubraso, we will problem and casa. I decided to travel to Saudi Arabia because of hardship.
Tinkan se me Jeffy ni ho se me ko baby. Ma wotre be ma na nhwe nkwala no. Na de otoso mienu no sabiniti edibuwa ne pa. Me chi aburo ni nkate ya de hwa akwala no e ma ne wie secondary school oboa buamponsem. Be ma no nhwe nkwala no. Nti se abase akwala no se otoa so. Na yiye good pa. Obi ahwa akwala na ne nani age. Ba me ni buafo.
Two victims also said although they knew about the risk involved in embarking on such a journey, their relatives who once lived in Saudi Arabia assured them of their safety and acquisition of better jobs.
I can
testify to the fact that some people succeed when they travel to the Gulf states.
I was never bothered about the risk involved.
While some of them were charged about 2,000 Ghana cedis for the processing of their passports and documents, others who had nothing to offer were permitted to travel without paying any amount. The 4 traffickers behind the act were transporting the 44 victims via Nigeria to Saudi Arabia. According to the acting head of the Public Affairs Unit of the Ghana Immigration Service, Deputy Superintendent Michael Amwakwata, the 4 human traffickers are behind bars at the Immigration Service to assist with investigations.
We are conducting further investigations to know if there are some kingpins behind this whole process, because they were able to procure their passports and tickets. So it looks like there's a bigger fish behind this whole syndicate.
The Small Arms Commission has raised alarm over the influx of unregistered weapons in the hands of wrong people in Ghana. It is estimated that a couple of years ago, some 2.3 million unregistered arms were in circulation in the country, a phenomenon that fueled various armed conflicts in Ghana. As the world observes a week of action against gun violence, the United Nations is partnering the government to halt the circulation and forms of gun-related violence.
The United Nations estimates that 1 billion small arms are in circulation globally and some 800 more are produced annually by thousands of manufacturers around the world. The Small Arms Commission of Ghana, with support from United Nations Development Programme, has been measuring the prevalence of illicit small arms and light weapons since 2004. In 2015, a survey estimated that there were 2.3 million unregistered arms circulating in Ghana. Records from the Police Criminal Investigation Department show that illicit arms are the main weapons used in conflicts over chieftaincy and land rights. The CID has therefore raised concerns about their use in the politically related vigilantism as witnessed in the country since the December elections. The Deputy Minister for the Interior, Mr. Henry Kote, outlined the processes involved in acquiring a gun legally.
The applicant will have to write or apply to the Minister of the Interior. The application is handed over to the security agencies. One of them are the Bureau of National Investigations, and they do thorough background checks of the applicant. Sometimes it may take a year, depending, before approval is given. When the approval is given, you are given the permit to import, and then the CID Department or units of the Ghana Police Service will take you through the processes. After that, your license is always for a period of 1 year. So every 31st of December, you have to renew your permit or license to own the ammunition. You are given a number of bullets to be in a position at all times or at any given time.
He said his ministry is taking measures to prevent mob actions
adding that Ghanaians should desist from putting the law in their own hands, since that would amount to usurping the powers of the law courts.
We wish to emphasize that the mob justice is illegal, primitive, and has no place in a civilized community. And one of those steps will be to ensure that acts of mob justice are thoroughly and impartially investigated.
In an interview, the Executive Secretary of the Small Arms Commission, Mr. Jones Apler, said an all-hands-on-deck approach is needed to curb the menace because mob actions and violence drive away investors.
There's a very strong link between peace and development. Societies that are awash with guns don't realize their developmental aspirations.
The theme for this year's Global Week of Action Against Gun Violence is "The Road to Development and Peace Begins with Silencing the Guns."
Good evening, my name is Maurice Ubete. We talk business, brought to you by NIB and Ernest Chemist. Now, Minister for Energy, Mr. Boakye Ejiako, has explained that the extensive power outage which hit Accra Monday evening was as a result of disturbances on the line that transmit power in and out of Côte d'Ivoire. He said due to the volatile nature of the national power grid, such disturbances caused the power generators to shut down automatically. Mr. Boakye Ejiako also added that the current power crisis is due to financial challenges and not technical issues.
Engineers then go in to identify the line, the particular line that is affected, and then isolate that line and bring power back. So as we speak, what happened last night was to isolate the line into La Côte d'Ivoire and then bring everybody back on. On 3rd May, it was the Asiakpe Togo line that got disturbed. We didn't see it quickly enough, but it got isolated, and then all the other power generators were brought back online. This is because the national grid system is weak. And I go back to the point that it's not a technical problem. We have very competent technical people running the industry. But it's financial because we have mismanaged the money flows into the sector. We've mismanaged the money flows in the sense that, for example, power producers are not getting paid, crude suppliers and gas suppliers are not getting paid, and because we've mismanaged the money, the technical people do not have the resources to do what they have to do.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Energy has held the Made in Ghana Energy Summit in Accra. The summit assesses the country's energy sector and the prospects.
The Made in Energy Summit brought together investors, policymakers and civil society organizations in the energy sector to share ideas and strategize ahead. The Minister for Energy, Mr. Boakye Ejiako, said the Energy Ministry is the most indebted in the country.
This debt situation has been exacerbated by unacceptable distribution losses, utilization of expensive short-term loans by power utilities, among others, resulting in a huge sector indebtedness of nearly $2.4 billion. I often say that I'm the most indebted minister in the country.
Mr. Ejiako said the energy sector has been a vital component of Ghana's industrial and socio-economic development. In 2011, oil revenue inflow into Ghana's economy served as a boost to an unprecedented growth in the gross domestic product GDP rate of 14.1% on the back of increased economic activities in the sector. However, the Deputy Minister for Finance, Mr. Charles Edubuahin, said the country recorded the lowest GDP growth of 3.9 and 3.5 in 2015 and 2016 respectively due to irregular power supply.
The target is to grow the economy by 6.3% in 2017, owing mainly to the increased oil and gas production from the additional fields 10 and Sankafo Jinyame. The increase in oil and gas production should significantly increase government revenue as well as our hard currency flows. All we need is regular, reliable power to keep the lights on.
Some of the participants shared their thoughts on the future of Ghana's energy sector.
Recently, we returned from a trip to Burkina Faso and Mali, and they have given us an indication that the current 6% that we export to their countries is woefully inadequate. And they think that we are punching below our weights. We should be doing more. They want us to do between 20 and 30% export to their countries. And we are selling the idea to various players in the sector, and the feedback that we are getting is very, very good.
As we look into the future, I think Ghana will be well served if we look to natural gas, both from a cost perspective and also for environmental responsiveness perspective. And we in Ghana Gas will definitely be doing our bit to make sure that happens.
The summit continues on Wednesday, June 14, 2017. Salome Tete, GBC24, Accra.
And away from energy, the Ghana Exim Bank is to provide every municipal and district assembly with 100,000 Ghana cedis for capacity building in support of the one district, one factory policy. The chief executive of the bank, Mr. Lawrence Ajinsam, made this known at a national export strategy conference at Kofedra in the Eastern region.
The export strategy is aimed at putting Ghana on the global map as a world-class exporter of competitive products and services. As much as the strategy is targeting production for exports, the produce can also be used to strengthen the raw materials base of factories that will spring up under the One District, One Factory program. Under the export strategy, the 216 districts in the country are tasked to identify at least one significant commercially viable export product to help accelerate the growth of the export sector. The Ghana Export Promotion Authority deemed it fit to meet with municipal and district chief executives in the Eastern region, seen as key stakeholders in implementing the strategy. The Eastern Regional Minister, Mr. Eric Kwachi Dafo, said the Regional Coordinating Council has received a lot of proposals and invitations towards the One District, One Factory policy of the government.
The Planting for Food and Jobs program has taken off successfully in the region. The required inputs for the farmers have been supplied in their right numbers, and the Regional Directorate of Agriculture has rightly supervised the distribution of these inputs to the beneficiary farmers. An elaborate monitoring and supervision program has also been put in place to ensure success of the program. This is ample demonstration of the goodwill the private sector has for the project, and the participants from the assemblies are entreated to give this flagship program of the government their fullest commitment and support.
The Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, Madam Gifty Clanam, said GEPA is optimistic that the strategy targets will be achieved.
As much as practicable, our vision is to operate regional offices that will have district representatives who will see to the full implementation of one district, one export product concept. We want to see to the full implementation of this project to help us achieve the target we have set for ourselves.
The CEO of Exim Bank, Mr. Lawrence Ajinsam, said the bank is committed to lending monetary support to the program.
Ghana Exim won't put 100,000 per district to develop and identify this export that we want to do.
Still Business Live on GBC24. The Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, says they will resist any attempt aimed at reviewing portions of the GIPC Act that prohibits foreigners from doing retail business in the country. Their latest resolve follows comments by the GIPC boss, who believes protectionism has slowed down the growth of Ghanaian enterprises.
The Ghana Investment Promotion Center Act 865 of 2013 states a person who is not a citizen or an enterprise which is not wholly owned by a citizen shall not invest or participate in the sale of goods and services in a market, petty trading, hawking or selling of goods in a store at any place. Additionally, a foreigner needs not less than $1 million and 25 skilled Ghanaian workers to engage in the retail business. This act has visibly been violated over the years, with foreigners openly engaging in this sector of Ghana's economy. A fight against foreigners in the retail business by the Ghana Union of Traders Association has not yielded much results. At a forum in Accra, the Chief Executive Officer of the GIPC, Mr. Yofi Grant, is reported to have called for the review of the act, saying that Ghanaian businesses needed stimulus packages, not protectionism. The union has since lashed out at the GIPC boss, forcing the latter to call for a meeting between the two.
The discussion we had with the executive director of GIPC last Friday, which I was not part of that meeting, but with my information and the briefing that I got, that is not government position, because you cannot have that position when you have not really changed the law, the GIPC law.
Public Relations Officer of GUTA and Chairman of the Bosokan Spare Parts Dealers Association, George Tetepali, insists the union will resist any attempt to review the act.
I was just reading a policy from the Chinese government, and their policy is that if you're a foreigner, you open a company, 80% of the employees should be Chinese people, and 20% should be only foreigners. So it's a protest system. It's creating a job. So this is all part of protectionism, and every country has it. So I don't think where we sit now, we need any amendment of the law. All that we need now is the enforcement of the law. The law should be enforced. The law must be implemented.
Meanwhile, GUTA is calling on government to speed up procedures leading to the implementation of removed import levies on spare parts.
We're expecting that maybe by September it should take effect. And consumers are agitating that why are we not reducing the goods? They should hold their peace, and then at the shortest possible time, we will see it being enforced and implemented.
That was Business, brought to you by NIB and Ernest Chemist. News Hour continues after this break. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the news. This is the health segment brought to you by kindness of FPAC and Yamvita. Persons living with albinism are calling for an increment to the 2% allocation in the Common Fund. Currently, the Association of Persons with Albinism shares the 2% of the Common Fund with other Federation of Disability Organizations, making it woefully inadequate. As Ghana joins the rest of the world to mark Albinism Awareness Day today, the Executive Director of the Association of Persons with Albinism, Mr. Newton Kacheku, is calling for support in eliminating stigma associated with the condition.
Albinism is a health condition characterized by the complete or partial absence of pigment in the skin, hair or eyes. Albinism is associated with a number of vision defects and the lack of skin pigmentation, making persons living with albinism susceptible to sunburns and skin cancers. In parts of sub-Saharan Africa, persons living with albinism have long been subjected to discrimination and prejudice. Innocent victims of the pigment disorder are sometimes subjected to mutilation and even murdered for their body parts which are believed to possess magical powers. But there's just one basic knowledge of their condition: the lack of melanin. On November 18, 2014, the United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution establishing June 13 as International Albinism Awareness Day. The Ghana Association of Persons with Albinism is the umbrella body for people living with the condition in Ghana. In an interview with GBC24, the director of the association, Mr. Newton Kacheku, said through advocacy, the group now benefits from the 2% Common Fund for the Ghana Federation of Disability Organization. He said persons with albinism face challenges with their sight and direct rays of the sun on their skin, which exposes them to skin cancers. On culture and the society discriminating against them, this is what he had to say.
It thanks to the cultural practices or the beliefs that we have in our various communities, where some communities also bar persons with albinism in their community, coming to their communities. And also some of the chief state institutions also bar persons with albinism of coming to their palace, which is a violation even to the constitutional provisions in Ghana.
He urged the government to consider some international practices that persons with albinism do enjoy, like giving the fund directly to the association to manage. Mr. Andrews Daklu said that persons with albinism are just like any other person. Then he urged others to join the association in order to access the fund allocated to them by the government. As the world marks World Albinism Awareness Day, the clarion call is for all to avoid discrimination and stigmatization of persons living with albinism.
Meanwhile, members of parliament have added their voice to calls for persons living with albinism to be afforded equal opportunities. As the world celebrates Albinism Day, the MPs also called for special protection for persons living with the condition.
As we celebrate the International Albinism Day, let us bear in mind that we all have the responsibility to advance the renewal of hope for persons with albinism. As a country, we must do everything to ensure a level playing field for individuals with different types of challenges or disabilities. It would be better if government took note of this and ensure that anybody suffering from albinism will indeed be enrolled in our schools, at least at a basic level, so that they can have some form of education and also contribute their quota to national development. We must have an idea of how many albinos we have in every community, so that we give them a support to attend schools, not to be shy of what people will say, and to ensure that we monitor their progress and give them necessary support. This minority group of people deserves the protection of all of us. Where they have challenges with health, we as a people, as a country, ought to appreciate that because they are in the minority, they require special protection. And so we must make health facilities available to them so that as a beacon of civilization and democracy in Africa, it can spread far.
Also in health, the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit of the Sunyani Regional Hospital is in dire need of incubators and phototherapy machines to save newborns from needless death. The medical officer in charge of the unit, Dr. Bright Eziama, disclosed this in Sunyani, the Bunahafo Regional Capital.
The Neonatal Intensive Care Unit, NICU, at the Sunyani Regional Hospital is the main referral center for all other hospitals in the Bunahafo region. It has a capacity for handling 30 babies at a time, but increasingly, the facility is being overstretched by additional cases. Conditions commonly presented by the newborns include prematurity, neonatal jaundice, birth asphyxia, and neonatal sepsis. At present, the hospital has 5 phototherapy machines and 2 incubators. The ideal situation would have been the presence of at least 10 incubators and 20 phototherapy machines. Those in operation now are makeshift ones designed locally to help save more babies. The presentation to the hospital consisted of 1 phototherapy machine, electronic weighing machines, and assorted baby items, including diapers, wipes, detergent, baby formula, blankets, and child health record books. It was presented by an Accra-based legal practitioner, Amafrin Poma, who hails from Udumasi in the Sunyani West District, with support from family and friends. Making the presentation, she stressed that she was moved by the plight of caregivers as well as mothers and their newborns who visited the facility.
My younger sister had a set of twins in this hospital. One of them had an issue with her breath, and so she was referred here. Unfortunately, we lost her, but the second one who survived was also brought here. So when I came to visit her, I met young girls who had their babies on admission and could barely afford a wipe. And so you go there and see the kind of babies people have. You take life for granted. But I came to see them and I got humbled. And that is the premise for this or what we're saying today.
The head of the pediatric department of the hospital thanked the donor and said such gestures help them to deliver their mandate, which is to save lives of newly born babies. Dr. Esiama showed GBC24 around the NICU. Ideally, a baby should have one incubator or phototherapy machine to itself, but now they have to share because the hospital has just a few of the equipment.
We need incubators in the unit. Currently we have 3 incubators, which 2 are functional now. Because these incubators are used to care for those who are freshly born, who didn't develop fully in their mother's womb before they were born, as the premature babies. So usually when they are born, we keep them in the incubators to keep them warm so they don't become cold.
Hello, good evening. Let's talk sports. I'm Theophilus Sampa. The Ghana Fencing Association, in collaboration with the Hungarian Embassy, will organize the first inter-schools competition. The event is aimed at introducing the sport to athletes at the school-going age.
The first fencing inter-schools competition is set for the Accra Sports Stadium Sports Hall. The competition, which is being funded by the Hungarian Embassy, will have 32 specially trained athletes from some selected schools participating. They will compete at the team level and individual level, both boys and girls. The main purpose for the competition is to strengthen the bond of unity between Ghana and Hungary and promote fencing in schools. The winners of the competition, both male and female, will get free air tickets to Hungary and have a 10-day training camp and program. Officials say 6 of the best fencers, both boys and girls, will be given the tickets.
Currently, we've had 6 schools that are taking part of this event from 4 regions. That is the Upper East region. Okay. We have a Volta region taking part. We have Greater Accra, Central region, and then Eastern region. Yet we have also received some fencers in the Ashanti region to want to take part, and Brongahafo region to also want to take part. The winners of this particular event are really going to have something that even our national team have never experienced before. Because it's not about you going to compete at the world stage, no, but it's about going to train in the hands of a grandmaster who has trained Olympic medalists, you know, and in a well-refurbished training center.
The competition is slated for the 22nd of June this year at the Accra Sports Stadium.
Talking pugilism now, where Ghana's WBO Interim Africa Middleweight Champion Obodai the Miracle Sai will mount the ring on Friday, June 16 at the Bukum Boxing Arena.
Ghana's world title hopeful Obodai Sai is engaged in a fight of his life against undefeated WBO African champion Walter Kautundukwa from Namibia. The bout, put together by the Lions Boxing Promotions, has been dubbed Explosive Fight Night. What makes the contest interesting is the fact that there are only 2 boxers ranked on the African continent in the middleweight division in any of the 4 recognized sanctioned bodies, that's the WBO, WBC, IBF and WBA. Sai's opponent, Walter Kautundukwa, is the WBA number 8, whilst Obodai Sai is ranked 13th. The Namibian has 14 wins from 14 fights, with 13 of the wins by way of knockout. Sai, on the other hand, has a record of 32 wins, 2 defeats, 25 wins by way of knockouts. Being the WBO title eliminator, the contest has been sanctioned by the World Boxing Organization WBO and the International Boxing Federation IBF. The organizers of the bout, the Lions Boxing Promotions, have lined up other top local fights, including a rematch between Michael Ansa, known on the boxing scene as One Bullet, and Patrick O'Kane. Rafael Mensah, who is number 3 in the WBA super featherweight world ratings, will take on Edward Kambasi. Emmanuel Mate will lock horns with Kofi Johnson in a 10-round super middleweight contest. Bakwa Lute will then take on Takianan in a national super lightweight championship. Officials say boxing fans will be thrilled on the night.
Going to the USA, where the Golden State Warriors are the 2017 NBA champions. The Warriors beat the Cavaliers by 129 points to 120 in Game 5 to secure the 2nd championship in 3 years.
News brought to you by Carbell. My name is Valerie Danso. Imran Abdul Rahman is a pencil artist whose work has roused interest in art lovers. Striving to achieve the right details in his work is what makes him stand out. He was a guest on our showbiz segment on GBC24.
I want to do better anytime I draw. So if I begin with the eye and I do it better, I would like to see the next one if it will be better than the one I did previously.
Okay.
So the work itself.
Okay. So the quest to be better every time is what drives you.
Yeah. You are penciling down what nature itself has captured, and you are to do it with your hands.
Okay.
So the more you do it as realistic as it is, then the more fulfilling you become.
Alexandra Tomiyama is a student fashion designer. Collections by the young Ghanaian designer are inspired by cultural attitudes. Designs by Alexandra Tomiyama is a blend of two cultures, elements from the Ghanaian culture and that of the Japanese culture. The cultural elements comprise of the Japanese kimono, the Ghanaian kente, and the Japanese writings, kanji. She spoke to GBC24.
This time my collection is called Obachan 1993. Obachan is grandmother, so I dedicated it to my grandmom. The unique part of my designs were, if you could look at the kimono, the Japanese kimono that I took inspiration from, the features, I fused them into the Ghanaian women's wear, the Ghan women. The way they have their puff sleeves, I fused them, so I had different kinds of sleeves.
Sandals by Alexandra Tomiyama are made of wood. The fusion of multi-fabric pieces in a collection brings out the aesthetic beauty in her designs. That's all in the segment brought to you by Carbell. Have a good evening.
Interact with us on GMET website as displayed on the screen. Till we meet same time.
Thank you, Felicity, for an update on the weather. And that's it for the news. We'll be back at 10 with a later edition. Good evening.